The dark space around Earth's sun was empty and quiet. Then, like shadows moving in the night, 5 ships appeared. They were long and silver, shaped like daggers cutting through the darkness. No human eyes saw them arrive. No human machines detected their presence. Commander Vextal stood in the control room of the lead ship. His body was thin and tall, with pale gray skin that seemed to glow under the soft blue lights. His large black eyes stared at the small blue and green planet spinning slowly in the distance. Earth looked peaceful from so far away. "Report," Vextal said to his crew. His voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Cathara moved to his side. She was smaller than the commander, but her eyes were just as large and dark. In her long fingers, she held a glowing tablet covered in alien symbols. "Initial scans are complete, Commander," she said. "The 3rd planet shows signs of primitive life. The dominant species appears to be bipedal mammals. They have basic technology, but nothing that could threaten us." Vextal nodded slowly. This was the same story on every world they had visited. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 43 planets in the last 1,000 years. Each time, it was simple. They studied the local species, found their weaknesses, and then took over with minimal effort. "What is their technological level?" Vextal asked. Cathara touched her tablet, and numbers appeared in the air before them. "They have recently discovered nuclear energy. Some basic satellites orbit their planet. They have crude flying machines and simple computers. By our calculations, they are at least 2,000 years behind our current technology." The commander smiled. It was not a kind smile. "And their military capabilities?" "Primitive projectile weapons, chemical explosives. They fight wars with metal vehicles and foot soldiers. Their largest weapons could not damage our shields." Cathara replied. Other crew members moved around the control room. All of them were tall and thin like Vextal. Their movements were slow and careful. The Zephyrians had evolved on a world with low gravity and no dangerous predators. They were intelligent and advanced, but their bodies were weak and fragile. "Show me their cities," Vextal commanded. The main screen flickered to life. Images of Earth's cities appeared. New York with its tall buildings, London with its old streets, Tokyo with its bright lights. To the Zephyrians, these places looked crude and unorganized. "They cluster together in large groups," Cathara observed. "This will make control easier. We can target their population centers and force quick surrender." Vextal studied the images. He had seen similar sites on dozens of worlds. Primitive. Species always built their cities the same way. Tall buildings, crowded streets, millions of individuals living close together. It made them easy to control once you took over their communication systems and power sources. "What about their governments?" he asked. "Fractured," Cathara replied quickly. "They are divided into hundreds of separate territories. These territories frequently fight each other. There is no unified planetary leadership. This will work in our favor." The commander walked to a large window that looked out into space. Earth hung in the darkness like a blue marble. It was beautiful, he had to admit. The swirling white clouds, the deep blue oceans, the brown and green continents. It would make a fine addition to the Empire. "How long until the main fleet arrives?" Vextal asked. 6 rotations, Commander," replied Officer Zethin from his station. "Admiral Morkith is bringing 300 warships and 50 transport vessels, more than enough to pacify this world." Vextal nodded. The plan was always the same. Send in scouts to study the target, learn about their technology, their culture, their weaknesses. Then bring in the fleet and take over. Most species surrendered after seeing the power of Zephyrian technology. Those that didn't were quickly defeated. I want detailed behavioral studies, Vextal ordered. Deploy observation probes to their major population centers. But also study isolated groups. Sometimes you learn more about a species by watching individuals alone than by studying crowds. Yes, Commander, Cathara said. She began typing commands into her tablet dot within minutes. Dozens of small probes launched from the Zephyrian ships. Each probe was no bigger than a human's fist, but they contained advanced sensors and cameras. They were invisible to human detection. Methods and completely silent. The probes spread out across Earth's surface. Some went to busy cities like Paris and Mumbai. Others headed to military bases and government buildings. But several probes were sent to remote areas where humans lived alone or in small groups. Why study the isolated ones? Asked Officer Zethan. Surely the behavior in their cities is more important? Vextal turned from the window. Because, he said slowly, when a species faces danger alone, you see their true nature. In groups, they can hide behind others. Alone, they show you what they are really made of. Cathara looked up from her tablet. The probes are in position, Commander. We are receiving data streams from all locations. Excellent, Vextal said. Begin recording everything. I want to know how these humans think, how they react to threats, how they behave when they think no one is watching. The crew went to work. Screens around the control room lit up with images from Earth. City streets filled with hurrying humans. Farmlands where humans worked in fields. Oceans where humans traveled in boats. That one screen showed a remote mountain area. Tall trees covered rolling hills. A small human settlement sat in a valley. It looked peaceful and quiet. This location interests me, Vextal said, pointing at the mountain scene. What is the purpose of humans in such isolated areas? Cathara checked her data. According to our scans, this is a protected wilderness area. The humans there appear to be guardians of some kind. They maintain the area and watch for problems. Guardians, Vextal repeated thoughtfully. How do they handle threats in such remote locations? Do they call for help from their cities? We will soon find out, Commander, Cathara replied. The Zephyrian ships continued their silent watch. Soon they would know everything about humanity. Then the invasion would begin, and Earth would become another conquered world in their vast empire. Jake Murphy stepped out of his truck and breathed in the crisp mountain air. The morning sun painted the peaks of Montana in shades of gold and orange. He had been working as a park ranger for 15 years, and mornings like this still made him smile. He was 34 years old, with brown hair and weathered hands that showed his years of outdoor work. Jake stood 6 feet tall and had the solid build of a man who spent his days hiking mountain trails and carrying heavy packs. His uniform was clean but worn, and his boots had walked thousands of miles through wilderness. Another beautiful day. In paradise, Jake said to himself as he shouldered his backpack. Inside were his radio, first aid kit, tools for trail maintenance, and enough food and water for the day. High above, invisible to Jake's eyes, a Zephyrian probe followed his every move. The small device recorded everything as it floated silently. Through the trees dot in the alien ship, Lieutenant Cathara watched Jake on her screen. This human appears to be a typical specimen, she reported to Commander Vextal. Average size, moving slowly, carrying primitive equipment. What is his function? Vextal asked. Based on our observations, he maintains the trail systems in this wilderness area. He checks on structures, removes obstacles from paths, and monitors the local wildlife. Vextal studied Jake's image. The human looked ordinary enough, not particularly large or threatening. Does he carry weapons? Only basic tools, Cathara replied. A small axe, a knife, some rope. Nothing that would be effective against a serious threat. Jake began walking up a narrow trail that wound through tall pine trees. His steps were steady and sure. He knew these mountains like his own backyard. Every rock, every fallen log, every stream crossing was familiar to him. The probe followed overhead, its sensors recording everything. To the Zephyrians, Jake looked like he was just wandering through the forest without purpose. They did not understand that he was reading the wilderness like a book. He noticed where deer had passed, where a storm had damaged trees, where the trail needed repair. After 2 hours of hiking, Jake reached his first destination. It was a small wooden shelter built for hikers who needed protection from weather. The structure was simple but solid, designed to withstand mountain storms. Jake walked around the shelter, checking for damage. He found some loose boards and used his tools to fix them. The work was routine and peaceful, but as Jake worked, he noticed something wrong. The metal storage box behind the shelter was torn open. Cans of food were scattered across the ground. Deep claw marks gouged the wooden walls. "Bear," Jake said quietly. He had seen this kind of damage many times before. In the ship above. The Zephyrians watched with interest as Jake examined the destruction. "The human seems concerned about something," Officer Zethan observed. "There are claw marks on the structure." Cathara noted, "Our sensors detect traces of a large predator." Jake knelt and studied the tracks in the soft earth. They were huge, nearly twice the size of his hand. The claws had left deep scratches in the dirt. These were grizzly bear tracks, and they were fresh. "Big boy," Jake muttered, "and he's still around." The tracks led away from the shelter and deeper into the woods. Jake followed them carefully, his senses alert. A bear that had gotten used to human food was dangerous. It would keep coming back, and it might become aggressive toward hikers. The trail led to a small clearing surrounded by thick trees. In the center of the clearing was the bear. It was massive. The grizzly stood over 7 feet tall on its hind legs and weighed at least 800 pounds. Its brown fur was thick and shaggy, and its shoulders were like mountains of muscle. When it dropped to all fours, it was still taller than a man's waist. The bear was eating from a torn bag of trail mix, crunching the nuts and dried fruit with powerful jaws. It had not noticed Jake yet. In the Zephyrian ship, alarms began to sound. "Commander," Cathara called out, "the human has encountered a large predator." All eyes turned to the main screen. The bear filled most of the view, its massive form dwarfing everything around it. "By the void," whispered Officer Zethan. "That creature is enormous." Commander Vextall leaned forward in his chair. "What are the predator's capabilities?" "Cathara's." Fingers flew over her tablet as she analyzed the bear. "It weighs approximately 800 pounds. Bite force of over 1,500 pounds per square inch. Claws are 4 inches long and sharp enough to tear through steel. It can run at speeds up to 35 miles per hour. "And the human?" Vextall asked. "He weighs about 200 pounds. No natural weapons, no protective armor. If this creature attacks, the human will be killed instantly." All the Zephyrians watched as Jake stood at the edge of the clearing. They expected him to run. Any intelligent being would flee from such a massive predator. Even a Zephyrian with advanced technology would avoid direct contact with such a creature. But Jake did not run. Instead, he set down his backpack and quietly removed his small camping axe. The tool looked tiny in his hands, almost useless against such a massive opponent. "What is he doing?" Zethan asked in disbelief. He's approaching the predator," Cathara replied. Her voice filled with confusion. Jake walked slowly into the clearing. His movements were calm and deliberate. He held the axe at his side, ready but not threatening. His eyes never left the bear. The grizzly looked up from its food. For a moment, Human and bear stared at each other across the clearing. The bear's small eyes were intelligent and wary. It knew humans, but it had never been challenged by one. "Easy, big guy," Jake said in a low, steady voice. "Nobody needs to get hurt here." The bear snorted and rose up on its hind legs. Standing tall, it was truly massive. Its claws glinted in the sunlight, and its teeth were like white daggers dot in the ship. Commander Vextall gripped his chair. "Human is about to be killed. Should we intervene?" "Our orders are to observe only," Cathara reminded him. "We cannot interfere with local wildlife interactions." Jake stood his ground. He had faced bears before, but never one this size. His heart pounded in his chest, but his hands were steady. Years of wilderness experience had taught him that showing fear would only make things worse. "I know you're just hungry," Jake said to the bear, "but you can't be tearing up the shelters. People need those." The bear dropped back to all fours and took a step toward Jake, then another. Its massive paws made no sound on the forest floor. Jake raised his axe slightly. The blade caught the sunlight. "Don't make me do this," he warned. The bear paused, studying this strange human who refused to run. In its experience, humans always fled when they saw a grizzly. But this one stood firm, holding his tiny weapon, speaking in calm tones. The standoff continued for long seconds. Neither human nor bear moved. The forest around them was silent, except for the whisper of wind through the trees. Then the bear made its decision. With a roar that shook the ground, it charged. The grizzly bear charged across the clearing like a freight train made of muscle and fury. Its massive paws thundered against the ground, and its roar echoed through the mountains. 800 pounds of predator bore down on Jake Murphy with deadly intent. In the Zephyrian ship, every alien watched in horror. Their computer systems calculated the outcome instantly. The human had zero chance of survival. "The creature will reach him in 2.3 seconds, Cathara reported, her voice tight with shock. "Impact will be fatal." But Jake did not run. Instead, he did something that broke every logical prediction the Zephyrian computers had made. He ran toward the bear. "Impossible," whispered Commander Vextall. "He is charging the predator." Jake sprinted forward, his axe raised above his head. The gap between human and bear closed in seconds. At the last moment, Jake threw himself too, the side swinging his axe down hard. The blade bit deep into the bear's shoulder. Blood sprayed across the clearing as the grizzly roared in pain and surprise. The massive animal spun around, swiping with claws that could tear through tree bark. Jake rolled away, but not fast enough. The bear's claws caught his back, ripping through his shirt and skin. 3 long gashes opened from his shoulder to his ribs. Blood began to flow. "The human is injured," Zethan reported. He should retreat now, but Jake did not retreat. Instead, he got back on his feet and faced the bear again. Blood ran down his back, but his grip on the axe remained firm. The bear was hurt and angry now. It had never been wounded by a human before. This small creature had dared to fight back, and that made the grizzly furious. The bear charged again, this time staying low to the ground. Jake waited until the last second, then jumped high, bringing his axe down toward the bear's skull. The grizzly twisted away, and the axe glanced off its thick fur. But Jake's jump carried him onto the bear's back. For a moment, he rode the massive predator like some kind of nightmare bronco. The bear bucked and twisted, trying to throw him off. Jake held on with one hand and struck with the axe using the other. Each blow found its mark, opening new wounds in the bear's thick hide. Finally, the bear managed to reach back with its massive paw and swat Jake away. The blow sent him flying through the air. He crashed into a tree trunk with a sound that made the watching aliens flinch. "Surely he is finished now," Cathara said. Jake hit the ground hard. His ribs screamed with pain, and blood ran from a cut on his forehead. For a moment he lay still. The bear approached slowly, wary now. This human was not like others it had encountered. This one fought back with a fury that matched its own. Jake groaned and pushed himself up on one elbow. His axe lay a few feet away. Moving carefully, he reached for it. The bear saw the movement and charged again. This time, Jake was ready. As the massive predator closed in, he rolled to the side and came up swinging. The axe caught the bear across the face, opening a deep cut from its ear to its nose. The grizzly roared and backed away, shaking its huge head. Blood dripped from the wound, and one eye was nearly swollen shut. In the ship, the Zephyrian crew watched in stunned silence. Their computers had predicted the human's death within the first 30 seconds. It had now been over 10 minutes, and both combatants were still fighting. "This is not possible," Vextal said quietly. "Our data shows that humans are weak and fragile. How is this one still alive?" "I do not know, Commander," Cathara replied. "According to our measurements, he should have been killed by the first blow." Jake and the bear circled each other in the clearing. Both were bleeding now. Both were tired. But neither was willing to give up. The bear made the next move, rising up on its hind legs to its full height. It towered over Jake like a furry mountain, its claws ready to tear him apart. Jake looked up at the massive predator and felt something cold settle in his stomach. This was it. This was where his luck ran out. But then he thought about his wife Katie, waiting for him at home. He thought about his daughter Emma, who was only 5 years old. He thought about the hikers who would come up this trail next week, expecting the shelters to be safe. Jake Murphy had never backed down from a fight in his life. He was not about to start now. With a yell that surprised even himself, Jake charged the standing bear. He ducked under its massive arms and drove his axe deep into the animal's chest. The bear roared and fell forward, trying to crush Jake under its weight. Jake threw himself backward, pulling the axe free as he went. The grizzly hit the ground with a sound like thunder. For a moment it lay still, breathing heavily. Blood pooled beneath its massive body. Jake stood over the fallen predator, his axe ready. He was covered in blood, both his own and the bear's. His clothes were torn, and deep gashes marked his back and arms. But he was still standing. The bear lifted its head and looked at Jake. In its eyes, the fury was gone. Now there was only pain and exhaustion. "Had enough?" Jake asked, his voice hoarse. The bear struggled to its feet. It was hurt badly, but it was still alive. For a long moment, human and predator stared at each other. Then, slowly, the bear turned and walked away. It moved with the dignity of a defeated warrior, bloody but unbowed. At the edge of the clearing, it looked back once at Jake and disappeared into the thick trees. Jake watched it go and sat down heavily on a fallen log. His whole body ached, and he could feel blood seeping from his wounds. But he was alive. In the Zephyrian ship, absolute silence filled the control room. Every alien stared at the screen in disbelief. Did the human just defeat the predator? Zethan asked quietly. "It appears so," Cathara replied, her voice barely a whisper. Commander Vextal leaned back in his chair. In all his years of studying primitive species, he had never seen anything like this. A creature 1/4 the size of its opponent, with no natural weapons or armor, had fought a massive predator to a standstill and won. On the screen, Jake stood up and began gathering his scattered equipment. He moved slowly, favoring his injured ribs, but he moved with purpose. "What is he doing now?" Vextal asked. He is cleaning up the area," Cathara reported. He is collecting the scattered food and repairing the damaged storage container. Jake worked methodically, as if fighting a grizzly bear was just another part of his daily routine. He used his first aid kit to bandage his worst wounds, then continued with his tasks. Unbelievable, Vextal said. He nearly died, and now he continues his work as if nothing happened. Jake finished his repairs and shouldered his pack. He looked once more at the spot where the bear had fallen, then continued up the trail to check the next shelter. The probe followed him, recording everything. In the ship above, the Zephyrian crew watched in growing amazement as Jake treated his encounter with the massive predator as just another day at the office. "Commander," Cathara said slowly, "I think we need to recalculate our assessment of this species." Commander Vextal stood in the center of the ship's main meeting room. Around him, his senior officers sat in their floating chairs, their large black eyes reflecting the soft blue light. The silence was heavy and uncomfortable. "Explain to me." "Again what we witnessed," Vextal said quietly. Lieutenant Cathara activated her tablet, and images filled the air above them. A fight between Jake Murphy and the grizzly bear played out in slow motion. Every brutal moment was captured in perfect detail. "The human engaged a predator 8 times his size," she began. "The creature had natural weapons, capable of tearing through metal. It possessed strength that could crush bones with a single blow. By all logical calculations, the human should have died within seconds. Yet he won," Officer Zethan added, his voice filled with disbelief. "Not just one," Cathara corrected. "He fought for over 20 minutes. He sustained injuries that should have been fatal. And when it was over, he continued his work as if nothing had happened." Vextal paced around the room, his long fingers clasped behind his back. "This cannot be normal behavior for their species. This must be an exception, a genetic anomaly." "That is what I thought as well, Commander," Cathara said. "So I expanded our observations. What I found is disturbing. The images changed. Now they showed humans from around the world engaged in various activities. These humans climb vertical, rock faces with no safety equipment," Cathara explained as they watched a man scale a sheer cliff using only his hands and feet. "They call it recreation." The next image showed a woman throwing herself from an aircraft, falling thousands of feet before opening a parachute. "They leap from flying machines for entertainment," Cathara continued. More images followed. Humans racing vehicles at deadly speeds. Humans diving to crushing depths in Earth's oceans. Humans running through extreme heat and cold for no apparent reason other than personal satisfaction. "They engage in combat with their own species as sport," Cathara said, as images of boxing and mixed martial arts appeared. "They intentionally harm each other for the entertainment of crowds." Officer Zethan leaned forward in his chair. "This makes no sense. Why would an intelligent species deliberately put themselves in danger?" "I believe," Cathara said slowly, "that they do not consider these activities dangerous. What we see is potentially fatal, they see as normal challenges." Commander Vextal stopped pacing. "Show me their military forces." The images changed again. Now they showed human soldiers in various training exercises. The Zephyrians watched in growing horror as humans carried massive weights, ran through obstacle courses, and practiced combat techniques. "This is Sergeant Danny Collins of the human military," Cathara explained as they watched a muscular man with dark skin complete a grueling training exercise. "He can run 26 miles without stopping. He can lift weights equal to twice his body mass. He regularly practices combat techniques that would kill most known species." The next image showed a woman in military uniform leading a squad through a desert training ground. "Captain Lisa Rodriguez," Cathara continued. "She has survived in hostile environments for months with minimal supplies. She has engaged enemy forces in direct combat and emerged victorious. More images followed. Soldiers jumping from aircraft into combat zones. Marines storming beaches under enemy fire. Special forces operating in conditions that would kill most. Aliens within hours. Their military training is designed to prepare them for scenarios that we would consider impossible to survive, Cathara reported. They practice fighting in extreme temperatures, without food or water, while injured and against overwhelming odds. Commander Vextal felt something cold growing in his chest. What about their civilian population? Surely they are not all warriors. That is what I thought as well, Cathara replied. But our observations suggest otherwise. The images shifted to show everyday humans in ordinary situations. A construction worker lifting steel beams. A firefighter running into a burning building. A police officer chasing criminals through dangerous streets. Their daily occupations involve risks that would terrify most species, Cathara explained. They work in environments that could kill them. They face danger as part of their routine jobs. Officer Zethan shifted nervously in his chair. What about their physical capabilities? Are they naturally stronger than our initial scans suggested? Much stronger, Cathara confirmed. Their planet has gravity 1.2 times greater than our homeworld. This has made their muscles and bones incredibly dense. They are approximately 4 times stronger than a typical Zephyrian. She paused, touching her tablet to bring up new data. But physical strength is not their most dangerous attribute, she continued. It is their psychological makeup. They appear to be incapable of surrender. Impossible, Vextal said. Every species has a survival instinct. When faced with certain death, they retreat. Not humans, Cathara replied. Our historical data shows that when faced with impossible odds, humans become more dangerous, not less. They have a phrase, never give up. It appears to be a fundamental part of their nature. The images now showed historical human battles. Soldiers fighting to the last man. Civilians resisting overwhelming forces. Humans choosing death over surrender in situation after situation. In their most recent global conflict, Cathara explained, humans fought for 6 years. Millions died. Entire cities were destroyed. Yet they continued fighting until one side was completely defeated. And the survivors? Vextal asked. They rebuilt their civilization and became stronger than before. Cathara replied. Commander. Vextal sat down heavily in his chair. Around him, his officers looked equally disturbed. What are your recommendations, Lieutenant? He asked. Cathara hesitated. Commander, I believe we have made a critical error in our assessment. We assumed that humans were a typical primitive species, but they are not typical at all. She touched her tablet, and a new display appeared showing Earth from space. There. World is what we would classify as a death world, she continued. Extreme weather patterns. Violent geological activity. Dangerous predators. Deadly diseases. Most species would consider it uninhabitable. Yet humans evolved there, Zethan observed. More than evolved, Cathara corrected. They mastered it. They conquered every environment on their planet. They eliminated or tamed every predator. They turned a death world into their garden. And now, Vextal said quietly, we plan to invade their world with 300 ships. The room fell silent. Every Zephyrian was thinking the same thing. Their ships were designed to overwhelm civilized species with superior technology. Their weapons were meant to force quick surrender from rational beings who valued their lives. But humans were not rational by Zephyrian standards. They were predators who had evolved on a world that killed the weak and rewarded the strong. They were warriors who treated impossible odds as motivation rather than discouragement. Commander, Cathara said softly, I recommend we contact Admiral Morkith immediately. The invasion fleet should be recalled. On what grounds? Vextal asked. On the grounds that we are not invading a world of primitive prey, Cathara replied. We are about to attack a planet full of predators who consider violence a hobby. Commander Vextal looked at the image of Earth spinning peacefully in the darkness. Such a beautiful world. Such dangerous inhabitants. Open a channel to the Admiral. He ordered. The communication screen activated, showing the stern face of Admiral Morkith. Behind him, the massive invasion fleet moved through space toward Earth. Report, Commander, the Admiral said. Vextal took a deep breath. Sir, I recommend immediate withdrawal of all forces. Target species has been misclassified. Explain. The humans are not primitive prey, Admiral. They are apex predators. Highly aggressive, physically powerful, and psychologically incapable of surrender. An invasion would result in massive casualties. Admiral Morkith's expression darkened. Commander, are you suggesting that 300 advanced warships cannot handle a species that has not even achieved interstellar flight? Yes, sir, Vextal replied. That is exactly what I am suggesting. Admiral Morkith's massive fleet moved through the darkness of space like a school of silver fish. 300 warships and 50 transport vessels advanced toward Earth in perfect formation. It was the largest invasion force the Zephyrian Empire had ever assembled. On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Morkith studied the reports from Commander Vextal's scouting mission. The data made no sense. How could a primitive species pose any threat to the mighty Zephyrian Empire? Admiral, his aide Officer Lexith approached cautiously. We are receiving another urgent transmission from the advanced scouts. Put it through, Morkith ordered. Commander Vextal's image appeared on the main screen. Behind him, his crew worked frantically at their stations. Admiral, you must halt the invasion immediately, Vextal said without any formal greeting. We have discovered additional intelligence about the humans. They are far more dangerous than we initially assessed. Commander, I have read your reports, Morkith replied coldly. One human fought a large predator. This hardly justifies calling off an entire invasion. Sir, with respect, that was just the beginning, Vextal said. Lieutenant Cathara, show the Admiral what we discovered about their weapons. On Morkith's screen, images appeared of human military equipment. Tanks rolled across battlefields. Fighter aircraft screamed through skies. Massive ships fired enormous guns across oceans. Primitive technology, Morkith dismissed. Our shields can deflect their weapons easily. Admiral, Cathara's voice came through the transmission. They possess nuclear weapons. Thousands of them. Some are 100 times more powerful than the bombs they used in their last global war. Morkith paused. Nuclear weapons were serious, but the Empire had faced them before. Our ships can survive nuclear attacks. Sir, Vextal continued, that is not our primary concern. Watch this. New images appeared. Humans in protective suits worked with dangerous chemicals. Scientists studied deadly viruses in sealed laboratories. Military personnel trained with biological weapons. They have weaponized diseases, Vextal explained. Viruses that kill in days. Chemical agents that can wipe out entire cities. They have spent centuries perfecting ways to kill their own species. And now they will turn those weapons on us, Cathara added. Morkith felt a chill run down his spine. The Zephyrians had never encountered a species that used biological warfare. Their own immune systems were weak, designed for their clean, controlled homeworld. There is more, Admiral, Vextal said. Show him the psychological profiles. The screen filled with images of human history. Battles fought against impossible odds. Last stands where humans chose death over surrender. Cities that burned rather than submit to conquerors. They do not surrender, Admiral, Vextal explained. Even when facing certain death, they continue fighting. Our invasion will not result in quick submission. It will result in a war of extermination. Admiral Morkith studied the images with growing unease. He had conquered 43 worlds in his career. Every species had surrendered when faced with overwhelming force, but these humans seemed different. "Sir," Officer Lexith whispered, "perhaps we should consider the commander's recommendations." On the screen, more disturbing images appeared. Human children learning to fight. Civilians practicing with weapons. Entire populations preparing for war. They train their young for combat, Cathar reported. Every human learns basic fighting skills. Their entire society is organized around the concept of warfare. Even their entertainment involves combat. Vextel added as images of human sports appeared. Football players crashing into each other. Boxers exchanging punches. Wrestlers grappling on mats. They enjoy violence, Cathara explained. What other species consider traumatic, they consider fun. Admiral Morkith stood up from his command chair. "Commander, are you telling me that an entire species of predators lives on that planet?" "Yes, sir," Vextal replied. "And they have had thousands of years to perfect the art of killing." The Admiral walked to the great window that looked out at his fleet. 300 of the Empire's finest warships spread out before him. Each one could destroy a city with a single shot. Surely they could handle one primitive world, but doubt crept into his mind as he thought about Vextail's reports. The human who fought the bear. The soldiers who trained in conditions that would kill most aliens. The weapons designed to exterminate entire populations. "Admiral," Vextal's voice continued from the screen, "there is one more thing you need to see." The images changed to show Jake Murphy finishing his patrol. The human ranger walked down the mountain trail, his wounds bandaged, his equipment organized. He looked tired but satisfied. This human fought a creature that could have killed him. Easily, Vextal explained. When the battle was over, he did not seek medical attention. He did not call for help. He simply continued his work. "So?" Morkith asked. "Sir, this was not a trained warrior. This was not a soldier or a fighter. This was an ordinary human doing an ordinary job. And he fought a deadly predator as if it was a minor inconvenience." The Admiral felt ice form in his stomach. "You mean they are all like this?" "We believe so, sir," Cathara replied. "Our observations suggest that what we witnessed was typical human behavior when faced with threats." On the screen, more images appeared. Firefighters running into burning buildings. Police officers confronting armed criminals. Ordinary citizens helping during disasters and emergencies. They do not flee from danger, Vextal explained. They run toward it. It is their natural instinct. Admiral Morkith thought about his own species. The Zephyrians were intelligent and advanced, but they were also careful and cautious. They avoided unnecessary risks. They valued their lives above all else, but humans seemed to be the opposite. They sought out danger. They embraced conflict. They treated mortal peril as just another challenge to overcome. "Admiral," came a new voice from his communications officer. "We are receiving reports from other scout ships throughout the system." "What kind of reports?" "Sir, the humans have detected our presence." Orkith spun around. "Impossible. Our ships are completely invisible to their primitive sensors." "Not our ships, sir. But they have noticed changes in their astronomical observations. Some of their scientists are reporting gravitational anomalies in the outer system." The Admiral felt panic rising in his chest. If the humans knew about the fleet, they would prepare for war. And based on what he had learned about their species, that preparation would be extensive and deadly. "How long before they confirm our presence?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. But their detection methods are more sophisticated than we initially believed." Morkith made his decision. "All ships Halt advance immediately. Prepare for emergency withdrawal. Sir? Officer Lexith looked confused. You heard me. Signal the entire fleet. We are withdrawing from this system immediately. On the screen, Commander Vextel looked relieved. A wise decision, Admiral. Kethara, Morkith addressed the scout ship directly. I want you to compile a complete report on the human species. Mark their system as Forbidden's territory. No Empire. Ship is to approach within 10 light years of Earth. Yes, sir, Kethara replied. What classification should I assign to the humans? Morkith thought for a moment. Class Omega. Apex Predators. Approach forbidden under all circumstances. Across the fleet, ships began to turn away from Earth. The mighty invasion force that had come to conquer a primitive world now fled in full retreat. On Earth, Jake Murphy reached his truck as the sun set behind the mountains. He was tired and sore from his fight with the bear, but it had been a good day. The trails were safe, the shelters were repaired, and the bear had been taught to stay away from human food. He climbed into his truck and started the engine. In a few hours, he would be home with his wife Katie and daughter Emma. Katie would fuss over his wounds, and Emma would want to hear about his adventure. As Jake drove down the mountain road, he had no idea that his fight with a grizzly bear had just saved humanity from an alien invasion. He did not know that somewhere in space, an entire fleet was retreating in fear after witnessing what they called typical human behavior. To Jake, it had just been another day at work. 3 days. Later, the last Zephyrian ship left the solar system. They carried with them stories that would spread throughout the galaxy. Tales of a death world where apex predators had evolved intelligence, but retained their savage nature. Other alien civilizations who heard these stories marked Earth as a forbidden zone. They told legends of humans who fought monsters for fun, and considered warfare a recreational activity. And Jake Murphy, completely unaware of his galactic fame, continued his peaceful life as a park ranger, protecting the wilderness he loved and occasionally fighting bears when necessary. In the vast databases of the Zephyrian Empire, Earth was forever marked with a simple warning: inhabited by humans, do not approach. It was a warning that would save countless alien lives for generations to come.